Yeah, so would like to spend a little time talking about, we called it on my outline family care, but basically we have 4 kids. Abram was the oldest and is the oldest for our firstborn, but got Ezra, Jubilee, and Eli, which they're all 15 to 18 months, falling behind in order.
We did 4 and 4 years on purpose. Full disclaimer.
Yeah.
For
We went for it.
Yeah. Everybody's like, you know how that happens? I'm like, yeah, dumbass. I know how that
Yeah,
happens.
we
Like,
figured it out.
Yeah.
Turns out we do.
Yep.
So I appreciate that question.
Mm-hmm.
Not really.
No, we did it on purpose. We wanted a big family, and I love kiddos, but I was like, the day I stopped carrying a diaper bag, it's not happening again. So we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
And we did. And they get so cute. Like, it's right around that like 6 to 8 month mark. They would get real cute where they're not really mobile yet, and yet they're adorable and they're sleeping through the night. It's like the golden couple months. And we always got pregnant right then. So.
Yep.
It's awesome.
Yeah. We weren't.
God was very gracious in that.
Yeah. We weren't mad about any of it. We were excited.
It was awesome. We loved it. Minus, I was a little grouchy pregnant, but.
Yeah, pregnancies were hard, but
the kid's great.
We loved our kids. So our other 3 kids, this is happening to them too. And in a lot of ways, they got the worst of it because, Abram needs all the care and whatever we've got. And so they're getting whatever's left from us, which isn't a lot.
Yeah.
So,
we still see stuff this day as a repercussion of that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So we talked about a little bit earlier, we told him he's got cancer, and early, when he's first diagnosed, he's, they're allowed to come to the hospital. And so he's diagnosed, and it's scary. But when they're able to come up and see their brother, and he's okay. I mean, he's okay as far as they know him. He's okay.
It's really helpful.
Yeah, so getting him up there around him, and he loved seeing him. He
loved seeing Ezra.
Yeah,
he loved the other 2, but
yeah. So Eli's 2.
He's 2.
Jubilee's 4.
No, she just she was 3 when he got diagnosed, but she had just turned 4 at the end of January. Yeah. So we have almost 3-year-old and a newly 4-year-old.
Yeah, so they're a lot when they come.
They want to push all the buttons.
Yeah,
them being that young, what's it like trying to figure out what to share with them?
I mean, we were pretty honest from the get-go.
I mean, we weren't like, hey, Abram could die. We didn't do that.
No,
but we were like, he's got cancer.
He's really sick.
He's really sick, and this is not like you're get over it in a week kind of sick. We're gonna be in the hospital off and on, and
they knew. I mean, we talked about this. Like, they knew enough about cancer at this point. They had lost.
Yep, that's right.
So many family members to cancer. Like, I can't imagine how much Eli understood it too, or even Jubilee. But there wasn't a like they had to have some concept. Like, this is a big deal for what they could understand. I think.
Yeah, going up and seeing their oldest brother in a hospital bed, connected to
all the wires
and IVs, and then as it went along, he's losing his hair. He's there's some
sweet. Ezra shaved it with him.
Yeah, so all the boys in the family.
I don't think Eli did it. Did we do it for Eli?
He got a haircut, but it wasn't shaved.
He was so little. He had no clue.
Yeah.
He was so little.
Imagine that as a memory.
For
Ezra.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a sweet memory.
Yeah.
He did it for his brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Ezra, Abram could care less about his appearance. Like,
that's not completely true. The only thing I remember that first time when we told him like he had cancer, he was upset that he was going to lose his hair. In general, he was not an appearance person. He was fine after he lost it, but he did not like the idea that he was going to lose it.
Whereas,
and he was upset about it. That was the only thing I think he was upset about.
But contrast that with Ezra, who really cares a lot about appearance.
Yeah, he's a lot more GQ.
Yeah. So like cutting his hair was
Yeah. It was a huge deal.
big deal.
I agree with that. And he wanted to do it for his brother.
Yeah. And so that was really sweet. And, we want to, and so the relationship is, Abram and Ezra were extremely close. Abram was more gregarious, outgoing. Ezra was more introverted. But the two of them together, like Abram pulled something out of Ezra that was super sweet, and then vice versa. And they got along super well.
And they were truly best friends.
They're really very. I mean, they were best friends. So then Ezra's whole world gets just completely rocked with his brother, his best buddy, is just gone. I mean, he's there, but he's gone.
What are their ages? All three of the kids at this point.
So
At the beginning of the journey.
yeah, initially Ezra's 5, and then
3 and 2. But Jubilee turns 4 like right after Abram gets diagnosed. So she's
Okay.
almost 4. And then Eli turned 3 not too long after.
yeah. So when Abram passed, Ezra was 7. So he was 5.5 to 6 was most of his years of that. And yeah, we don't have loads of wisdom of what you should do with your kids. We just tried the best, best
I think
we could.
And I think that's true. Like, I think we did the best we can, but like ultimately there are things to this day we can see, like, I don't want to call them failures because we really were doing the best we could. And I think there's this blanket of grace around that, like where ultimately we only had so much to give. And so it's not like a guilt thing. I don't want it to sound like that, but like there are repercussions for other kids.
The scars, yeah.
Yeah, that affected them. I mean, they essentially, like we were talking about this earlier, like they were raised by my parents, your parents, aunts and uncles for a year and a half. I mean, to a degree. And that leaves marks because there's not stability at all in this season
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah, I mean, grown-ups too, but especially kids, like function
Yes.
best in routine and rhythm. And that whole
It was gone.
22 months there was no rhythm, there was no routine. Mom's, gone every other week. Dad's, if he's here, he's coming in late because he's been at the hospital or,
Or
like,
work.
or, just whatever. Like, it's just, and then when Ashley and I, when we would get to spend time with them, the last thing we were going to want to do is discipline.
Yeah.
We just wanted to hug and hold our babies. And
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, I think before that, like we were both more what you call like no parents or strict parents. Like, I mean, we're more both wired that way, which I always like our kids got screwed by that deal because it's like we're just more like these are the rules, this is what you follow.
More militant, yeah.
And I do think it looks different on this side, especially going through what we do with them. But specifically in this season, it's like even for us, like when I'm home, I'm like I'm not gonna get onto them how I would. Like my discipline and our rhythms, which for me, I feel like I needed in that moment, but ultimately like looking at what our kids needed, like there's still like a mom's different, dad's different. Like I can do XYZ and get away with it. And I mean, like we talked about this too, but like iPads, like we've always had rules around that, like what that looks like, what your time is. And it all went out the window during that. Like it was just free for all. And there's things that were not healthy for our kids ultimately. And yet I don't walk at all in like this guilt or shame of that. Like there's a lot of things I do wrestle with stuff, but not with that. Like, cause I'm like, we were surviving.
Sure.
And I think that's like, if anyone's listening to this that like is in that, like that's okay. Like you survive what you have to, you do the absolute best you can. And there's places where it's okay to be like, I don't have this here. And that's okay. And I've seen our kids like there's not repercussions. And yet I've seen the other 3 still, as we brought back rhythms, as we have routines now, like they're okay. Like they're very resilient. And not that that's like, doesn't negate that they felt this pain and went through these struggles. Like, cause I think those are very real. Like ultimately my prayer for that is that it doesn't define them. And I think that's something I can expect.
Yeah. Yeah, we just given, if anything, just would admonish, just give yourselves a ton of grace, because I mean, and give your kids a ton
So
of
much
grace.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we were talking about, between different grandparents, different aunt and uncle, they had 4 or 5 different sets of disciplines and rules that they had to follow. I mean, everything's
none of them did it the same.
yeah.
And then us come home and we're different
Yeah.
than how we normally interact. And so it's a lot. And what they went through, I do think it'll be interesting as they get older, like to see their story come out. And I'm already getting glimpses of it. Like, especially like Ezra, like I just went on a date night with him last night. Like the stuff he shares with me, like as he gets older, as he can express stuff, like it is interesting because like they're going through it too. And I think we miss that sometimes. I know I missed that sometimes because I'm like absorbed in my little world of I want my son to live. I want to fight for him. I'm trying to take care of my other 3, and yet missing that they're in this. Like this is their story. Like this is what they're going through, and it's completely different to some degree than what mine is because I'm putting how I view life on them. You know what I mean? Like I know all these things and they don't, and so I do think it will define them.
Do you guys remember, like when you said the ages, I was trying to remember, like if I remember anything from before I was 5 years old kind of thing. And the reason I say that is like, I'm sure that I do, but I don't do it like I remember things now. Like I remember like what I did last week, or I remember what I did when I was 25. Like my recall, I wasn't able to, I can't go back that far. I'm not saying people can't. I think people can. So it's almost like the memory is like it's in you more than you know it kind of thing. It's not in your like literal like memory. It's in you.
I think
as
it's
a
more
human.
like that.
Yeah, it's like it's what made you in some sense.
I think one of the hardest things for me is like Eli will remember Abram through videos, through what we've shared, and I think I genuinely think Ezra and Julie have a degree they will remember Abram, and I think the Lord could give that to Eli, like, and I ask for that often, but I also am like he might not have that exact. I mean, he will never understand that relationship because it was the only relationship we had. Like we had 4 kids in 4 years, so the only relationship I got to see, and I remember it, and I think that's why it's so impactful. Is like the only relationship we got where it was actually an older brother and like a younger sibling. Like everyone else was just friends, enemy, like they all coexisted. You know what I mean? But like Abram and Eli had this gap, and I got to see this sweet 2 years. I mean, more than that, because Abram didn't stop being that for Eli, but like when he was healthy, being truly a big brother in a way that I show Eli often, like we talk about it, but that is hard for me because like I don't know what he can remember. Like, but it is interesting because even now, like I've seen Eli process like that. Like he says stuff, like he's like, but I miss Abram and I wish Abram was still here. And literally the other day, it was like 2 days ago, he was, and it's hard because I don't know how much he's regurgitating what he hears, but he was like, Mom, I just wish, when one of the persons in the family died, we all died and we could all just be in heaven together. I mean, that's Eli. Like, he's just like, hey, like, I want to be with Abram. Like, I want to all be together because he realizes something's missing. And yet I don't know what level cognitively, like, he actually remembers all the things.
Yeah, and it may not be. That's what I'm curious about. It's like it's probably less of a cognitive thing. It's more like it's in who they are. It's in like their belly kind of thing. It's in like their being,
shaping them.
These impressions that they experience at volumes that most people don't, kind of thing.
Well, I think him too. Like he was probably the most influenced by being raised by other people. I mean, he was raised by other people the same amount of time he had been alive. I mean, like 2 years, he was 2 years old when Abram got diagnosed. And it was 2 years pretty much through going through treatment. Like, that's a big part of his story.
So when you think about, diagnosis happens, You guys bring the kids up. Remember we talked about that in a previous episode. You communicate what you said earlier, which is he's really sick. He has cancer. He's not dying, but he's going to be in the hospital. What does keeping the family unit together look like? After that, what did that look like?
So we were just trying to figure out ways they could interact, because at first Abram could run around and jump and play, but then he couldn't. So we did a lot of video games because that was something Abram and Ezra could do together and interact, and I would do it with them. I'd played video games as a kid, and I'd kind of given up on it. Well, then
it was a gift though in that season.
Yeah, it's something I could engage.
Everybody can play. Yeah,
we can all do it together.
Yeah,
but it was interactive. It wasn't just like
right.
Yeah,
but they loved it. Abram loved it. It was something he could do. He could participate in. Ezra
wasn't limited by we're all playing the same kind of way.
And then if Abram got tired or didn't want to play anymore, he'd still sit there and watch.
He loved watching. He loved watching more than playing.
Yeah, and we were just looking for anything we could connect. Even
we did a lot of movie nights.
We'll talk more about this later, but just, we were, as things were becoming apparent, the trajectory of this thing, there was no limit to what we would try and do together.
Yep.
And that didn't make it easier. It was always harder.
Yeah, it definitely made it harder.
It was brutally hard.
But we fought for him.
It was not convenient, and sometimes Abram would feel worse because we pushed it. But it was like, man, whatever we got to do to...
We would regret it, though, if we didn't try certain things.
Yeah.
Because we were fighting so hard to live for whatever memories we could. And the truth is, sometimes it was not a win. But sometimes it was.
And how it played out.
Yeah. Yeah, because, what if there was a very real cost sometimes of, like, this pushed Abram too far, and now we're trying to play catch up in a way that was...
It's hard, because we want the other kids to have these memories with him. We want him to have the we're still fighting for him to live, but, we want the memories, right? And so you're fighting for those things, and just sometimes
he's experiencing a limitation of what he can do in that environment. Yeah.
And sometimes we pushed him too far, but you don't know till you don't know. That's what's so hard. I don't necessarily regret it because we never pushed him. As soon as we knew he wasn't good, we stopped. But it was, when I think about, a big thing I think about is his wish trip. We did it through the Dream Fund, but and they were amazing. It was so cool that we got to go on it. And yet.
So who's the Dream Fund?
Dream Fund?
The Dream Fund.
What do you mean?
What is it?
Yeah, it's an organization for kids.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you just want me to...
Yeah.
Okay. It's you're not asking me.
It's like Make-A-Wish.
It's like Make-A-Wish. It's through Florida, which is really cool. This is actually totally God's story. Make-A-Wish would not send Abram. Abram, when he got diagnosed, we knew another family, and then my brother and his wife, they all went to Disney World. Right, literally the week Abram got diagnosed, pretty much. They were both at Disney World at the same time. And so Abram's like, I want to go to Disney World. And so he learned real quick, you can get a wish. And this is before COVID, any of that stuff. And he's like, well, that's what I want. And so he was focused on Disney World. And so when we found out it wasn't going great, we need to make it happen. And Make-A-Wish was not willing to send kids anywhere because of COVID. But by God's grace, Dream Fund actually had my grandparents actually for years before Abram was ever sick on my dad's side that lived in Florida, given money. That's what they would be their Christmas present. They would ask all the family to give money to this fund to send a kid somewhere.
That's really cool.
And it was what they did every year.
Wow.
Before Abram was ever sick. This was just their heart. And so this fund, they knew about my grandpa. He had actually passed away early that year. And at his funeral, I was talking to someone and I was like, yeah, it just really sucks. Cause I was like, he really wants to go here. We don't know what's going to happen, but I don't think we're going to be able to do it. Like, Make-A-Wish won't send us. And so she's like, we can send you. And they don't normally take out of state people. Like, they're Florida based. And so it was awesome. Like, it was totally a God thing. They did everything for us. But I will say we pushed them too hard. Like, there was this hard place of like, we wanted to go do all the things because he wanted to go do all the things
Sure.
and like go see all the stuff, go do all the rides. And yet he's still really sick. And so, but at the same time, we're trying to balance our other kids. Like, he really did not want to go to Magic Kingdom. He did not want to see princesses. He did not care about any of that. Felt
But they
very
did.
strongly. But I'm like, but your sister, like, we can't be here, this all paid for thing, and not go here. So it's like, it was really hard to navigate that, where I'm like trying to do that. But I'm like, we did, I think, push him too hard on that trip. Where I think it would have been better for us to be like, let's go to 2 places. Let's just hang out at the place we're staying. What was it called? Give Kids. No.
Give Kids the World.
Is that what it is?
Give Kids the World.
Okay, Give Kids the World. So there's a place like that you can stay there for kids that have terminal illnesses. But it's all still, even that was such a bummer. Like, they were great. We were hosted for free. There can't be real complaints, but like, because of COVID, like, what that could be was so different than what we experienced, which is hard, but it was a hard balance. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's the example I think of.
Well, but the big deal was he wanted to go.
He wanted to go.
So we weren't throwing something at him
No,
that he
we
wanted.
did not want to go. We could be clear about that.
Yeah.
Neither of us. It was we called it our mission trip. It was our mission trip for our children.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was not fun or easy for us.
Yeah.
And yet we were determined.
Yeah.
I mean, we were determined to make it happen. for
Yeah,
him.
and this is with getting like all the fast passes, all
Oh,
the
we did
all the great things that you
best treatment.
can.
It was still really hard.
It was brutally hard, and he's in a wheelchair. He's we're
Yeah, he's in. I mean, we're taking all the meds. He's.
but it was worth it for his siblings, worth it for him to make those sacrifices.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
Yeah.
not a
Sometimes painful things are worth it. Yeah. 100%. And
It's just
It's
hard.
n-
There's such hard things to navigate on this side where I'm like, would I have done it different? But I'm like, but I would have regretted if we didn't take him, that he did never get to see it.
and what you're having to do in that is like, this, or you're aware that this might be a last for him. And at the
Oh,
same time, maybe for Jubilee, it's a first.
Yeah.
Right. And so like she wants to go do the princess thing. And you're like, yeah, because I'm your mom and we need to go do that for
Well,
because you're first. And this might be his. And
Because
that,
they're in it too.
man.
Like, that's what's,
right.
that is one of the big things I think with like talking about family care. Like, they're young, but our kids are in it. Like, this is their story in a way that I don't even know the ways ultimately that this is going to impact them. But like,
Yeah.
to try to be present for them, and that was our goal. And so if we can reach out specifically, like to each kid, like that was like, I didn't want to lose sight of that,
but it was
but it was hard.
it was extremely hard. It was,
It's impossible.
So
Yeah.
as things change with Abram, as far as like his health, what did the kids know? Like what pockets of like, when did you guys communicate, or did you guys communicate kind of, here's how he's doing? What did that look like throughout the process as he changed and progressed?
Yeah, I mean, we never took it to the finish line preemptively. Like we didn't set the expectation of we might lose your brother.
Yeah.
We were very honest about how he was doing and what he was doing.
Yeah, we always shared, like anytime you got a scan or anything, we never wanted to lie to them, because I didn't want to ever be on the side of, I told you he's going to live and not. Like, because I mean, the only time we actually had to go to the finish line was very early on with Ezra. We talked about that before, where Ezra came in and asked us, is Abram going to die? And I said, I don't know. I mean, like, essentially, I was like,
He came and asked you when?
this was first couple weeks after Abram got sick.
He wanted to know.
And he came in crying at night and was just like, is Abram going to die? And I was like, buddy, I don't know, but I hope not. And we're asking the Lord that he's going to save him. But we, from the get-go, we're not going to lie to them because at least the way I think we parent and the way we believe, like, I want to be safe. And so for my kid to think that I lied and said, hey, your brother's going to live, and then for him to die like that, that's not safe.
Yeah.
And so we didn't ever enter in if we didn't have to. And I will say we had so much grace. Like, that was the only time we were asked that question ever. Abram didn't ask us that. Jubilee didn't. Eli didn't. Ezra did once.
Ezra, 2 weeks in.
Once, and he never did again. And so we were always very honest about scams, but we never, I mean, from the get-go, we always said God's going to heal him. And that to this day is true because God did heal him. And we knew that to be true because God was either going to heal him on earth or he's going to heal him in heaven. And that is something that we can expand upon as they get older, but we were not going to lie to them. And so, and we said that, like, that was not a conversation. It was like, sometimes God heals here, sometimes God heals in heaven. But like, God heals.
Yeah, so you were essentially communicating to them, same thing you were communicating to yourselves and everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Within bounds.
Yeah, within
boundaries.
the words that
For
they
sure.
could understand.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Fair enough. Yeah.
just, and that was mainly, it was just Ezra that
It was really just Ezra that had the most questions.
But
and he's
to Rick's point, Abram never asked either.
no,
And
Abram never asked, which that is God's grace to
It
me.
is fun.
I to this day, of all the things I think God did for me throughout the whole thing, like, that was such a fear for me. And I really think that was one of God's biggest graces to me because he was just like, it would have been too much for my mama heart. And he didn't.
yeah. Yeah. I was looking at oh man. The boys, growing up that close, bath time, shower time, there's a lot of doubling up. And so the boys would, Abram and Ezra in particular, they do their showers, and Ashley has a recording,
Not of them in the shower.
not of them, but
I'm literally standing and recording a wall, but I'm recording the conversation because I heard them talking, and it was really sweet.
yeah, and it's Abram, and it's maybe 3 weeks before Abram.
It's probably about a month. Yeah, it's probably about a month before he
died,
passed.
Wow.
and they're talking in only the ways they can talk. 8-year-old and a 6-year-old or 7-year-old at that time, and
Yeah, he's 7.
Abram knew because Ezra said, I hope you get better, and he's like, maybe tomorrow, and Abram was like, well, it probably won't be tomorrow, but hopefully soon. And just like there was an awareness they both had, and
You had to finish what he said after that.
oh, go ahead.
Abram literally after that was like, Ezra, one day God's going to come back and everyone's going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Abram knew he was going to be healed. Like, he didn't know how. Like it was the way God wired him. It was nothing that we did. Like, it was literally just something that I think God put in Abram, knowing his story, knowing his life. And like, Abram knew the Lord, like, in a way that he's like, no, like, one day God is going to come back, and Ezra, he's going to heal everybody. And then literally Ezra proceeds to ask about hair on Abram's legs. That was the follow-up question after that one. So it was solid. And that actually, I was like, my mama heart needed that, where I was also like, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
it's like, what heck,
And you have hair on your legs. Yep, you do. Yep, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just so sweet and so tragic all at the same time. Of just, like, there was an awareness between the two of them.
Yeah. Yeah, Abram wasn't not aware, but there was just an innocence to the way God wired him, where it just, I genuinely don't think he was worried, if that makes sense. Whereas I don't think any other human, like, I just think that
Yeah.
was a gift that how he was wired was built for his story.
Yeah. Interesting. Very
No,
interesting.
throughout
right
the
there.
entire thing.
That's very
Mhm.
interesting.
Wild.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
very interesting.
And it
Wild.
was
Yeah.
100% not our parenting.
Yeah.
Although I would love to take credit for that one day. That is not truth.
No. It's not.
That's a really interesting idea. Yeah, because he was worried about certain things that would be painful throughout the process.
He was worried
Any
about
human being
painful
would be.
things, but he's worried about painful things that would happen to him, and he's worried about other people.
But
That was it.
how the whole thing was going to work
No,
out, where he was going
never.
to go over himself at that level.
Never.
That's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just wish I was wired like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was he really was though. Like, he was a testimony to me and you. Like, he literally, there were days that's what carried us.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
I mean,
oh, okay, you can believe that. All right, mommy and daddy got to believe this too. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you're not, it's the worst for you and you're not falling apart, then I
I got to
can't,
hold my crap
I
together.
can't fall apart, throw a fit or whatever.
Sure.
He really led us in that.
And his siblings.
Yeah.
My favorite thing he used to always say, I think I said this before, but he just always wanted to be home with family. Family was the most important. And he really did like portray that to the other three. Like, that was so sweet. Like, when he would come home, it's like he didn't care about anything else. Like, we tried to do the welcome home things. Like, all our neighbors came out.
Hated
Oh, y'all
it.
came out. I mean,
Hated it.
he did.
Yeah. Just
Come
get
on,
me
guys.
inside.
He wanted nothing to do with all the
Yeah,
attention.
all the
All
fanfare.
he wanted was his family in his
Yeah.
house. Like, and it was so sweet. Like, it meant, honestly, like, I cried every time. Like, it meant so much to me. Like, the people that are like, you're home, let's celebrate. And so it might have been just for me, but for Abram, he's like, I don't want any part of this. I want to be inside and I want to be with my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that overflows to our kids today.
Yeah. So we fought for those things to be together and function. And I don't think that's necessarily unique to us, but it was, yeah, if anything, it's just, we just did the best we could. And we know there's consequences and repercussions for
Yeah.
all our shortcomings, but it was the best we had.
Yeah, I think what I hear, like, we've talked obviously outside this table, but it's like going through an event like that, you're living a different life than most people live under the sun. And so the rules of that life and what's allowed and how you do all of it, it's a very uncharted territory. And so what I hear you saying is like, we kept the family together, right? As much as we could, right? And there was everything else that we did before, a lot went out the window because we couldn't do it. We couldn't maintain that, nor should you, kind of thing. And people that are listening
And
to that
that's okay.
need to absolutely feel okay to do that.
Yes.
But the theme that I hear amidst all the activities that you guys were doing, kind of thing, and even going back to our previous conversation with y'all, was like, stay together, right? Don't drift. Like, keep the family together, kind of thing, at all costs. Whatever we got to do, we're going to keep everybody intact, and on the boat, versus the opposite of that, obviously. So I don't know. Yeah. What does it look like? So they go to counseling now, right? Or did they do throughout it?
They have been. We're about to go back. We took a break for the summer.
Okay.
But we started that before.
We started it with just Abram and Ezra.
Yeah.
When Abram was sick, we started it with him and Ezra. And they would sometimes go together, sometimes apart. And that was such a gift. The other two
How'd you find that person?
through the place that I was at counseling with,
Okay,
had
good.
someone that specialized in
Okay.
children. And so found her and sent them, and that was really good. Like, especially when they would go together, just even long term, like Ezra was going before Abram passed and then continued to go after. And so I'm very grateful for that because there's just a place like all of our kids suffered. What Ezra suffered was a different level, whereas is literally his best friend. It is his person. It's every person that he hung out with most of the time. Because it was at this point in our dynamics before he even got sick, it was, I mean, they all played together, but it was Abram and Ezra and then Jubilee and Eli. Like that's kind of how the dynamics worked. And so we did notice very clearly, like when Abram was in the hospital, like there was a shift, like the dynamic shifted, but that was the hardest on Ezra because it was his dynamic that was gone, if that makes sense.
No,
and so,
yeah.
Getting to do that was, I think, very healthy, and I think continues to be healthy for all of them. Because, like, even Eli, like, has started to express stuff to the counselor, like that. He just says things that, like, I don't even always know is going on in his head. And so he's thinking about stuff because he's getting older and he's able to process stuff that he lived through and can now put words to.
Yeah.
But Ezra kind of had that opportunity and we continued to do it. And we started, after Abram passed, we started it with all three of them.
Okay.
Yeah. And the way our kids were wired, like Abram was so good at articulating exactly where he was emotionally, physically, spiritually. Which
was an amazing gift during what we went through.
Incredible.
But the other ones do not do that the same. He's the only one that was like that.
Yeah, it's almost 100% opposite for the other three. And so having a counselor who's trained and gifted at drawing, children out, like we were not gifted. I mean, they're our kids, but we're just
we try.
Yeah, not that level,
right?
For those things, yeah.
Like, I mean, we talk about like, people are like, well, how can I help and what should I say? Like, we felt those very same things for our own kids. We didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like we're in this, this hellstorm of all this stuff, and we don't know how to care for our kids. We didn't, and we're trying our best, and so those feelings of what do we do, what do we say, or how do we say it, we didn't know.
Yeah.
So we were trying to get help, counselor, and then they would confide in grandmas or aunts and uncles sometimes.
Yeah.
And we get bits and pieces,
which was very helpful.
Which was great. I mean, our family was so awesome, helping through that. I mean, but just it was. Yeah, we're not coming here with answers, necessarily, but just observations.
What are the kids coming like? So they go to a therapist, they go to a counselor, they come back with stuff and kind of just chirp out little things here and there, or do you talk to the counselor, or how does that work with just the ebb and flow of understanding how they're doing and how they're processing the whole thing? Or
I mean, the truth is, I think most of the stuff they talk with the counselor about, like, I'm not ever surprised by something the counselor's like comes. Like, it's normally stuff that I'm like, hey, I see this. And she's like, hey, I see this too. But it's good. I think it's just, honestly, ultimately, if nothing else, we're relying on counseling for them at this age. Like, I think it's good that they're talking to someone else that's not in the home, but I also ultimately am like, this is a rhythm I want for you in your life. Like, this is a safe thing for you, like, to know, because I think with any kind of grief, I think with any kind of pain, you don't get through it by suppressing. You only get through pain, and it is a real pain. There's real stuff going on with them by learning how to talk about it and put words to where you're at, to process it, and it loses a power when you can say it out loud. It loses a power, like, there's healing there. And so my hope ultimately is more of a rhythm for them, because I think the trauma that they have gone through at such a young age will mark their story.
Yeah, that's
without
really
question.
good.
And yet to have these rhythms of ways that are healthy, even if right now I'm not like gathering all this fruit.
No,
from XYZ.
You could have
like,
said that
that's
better.
not the goal.
Totally.
And so it's a rhythm that I think will be good for them.
Yeah, you
to
could
know
have said
that
that better.
this is good. So
100%. Yeah, if this grief is hardwired into them and in who they are, then also these tools and
I want them to
dialogue
be.
will also be there kind
Yes.
of thing.
And
It'll be
that's my
so
hope.
normal to them. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that a lot. That's awesome.
That's my hope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because, I mean, there's tendencies and, like, with Abram getting so much of the attention, I mean, there could be acting out, there could be disciplinary things just for, hey, I'm still here, you know,
Yeah.
don't forget about me. And they had a little bit of that. And that's hard, but I mean, it makes a ton of sense. Just like, I
Yep.
just want my mom and dad to remember I'm here. And it can feel to them, you know, that mom and dad are,
MIA.
yeah. And
And we were
We
to
were.
some degree.
Yeah.
And it's not unfair. So
Yeah, had to be.
Yeah, but and the other thing, just kind of loosening your hands as a parent. I mean, God gave you those children as to be their parents, but in those type of situations, just to open your hands a little bit to need help. I mean, Eli was potty trained by his preschool.
they were amazing. That's a very true story. Like
Yeah.
we literally were like, I was like, we went into 2020 and I was like, he's gonna be potty trained this year. We went in, Abram gets diagnosed first week of January, and I'm like, he is not being potty trained. And so that went out the window. And I really wanted him to be because there's a teacher I really loved at the preschool, and you have to be potty trained to be in that class the next year. All these things. And I was just like, I had a mission, didn't happen. I mean, he wasn't potty trained. This is still
Well,
probably a year later that he's
finally-
actually potty trained.
He was at preschool,
And they just did it.
Louisville.
Christian School. They were the gift that they were to our family. Like all our kids went there. They had Abram, they had all of them. And they literally just came around us and were like, whatever you need.
Well, and then even for Eli, they were like, hey, just throw some extra clothes and diaper in his backpack. We're going to take care of
Wow.
this.
Yeah.
And
But even more than that, I mean, they covered kids' tuitions. They loved us well.
they loved us very well. But it's as a parent, I mean, all those things, you're like, well, I'm supposed to do these things.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to,
And we had to let go.
yeah. And we had to. And
Yeah.
it was,
That was one of the hardest things, is letting people help like that, though, where it felt very foreign to me, the way I'm wired. And I think I've mentioned that too before, but having people step in like that, like even potty training your kid, you're just like, yeah, I should be able to have this together. Like I should be able to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's my fourth kid. This should be easy. Guess what was not easy?
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
And then in fairness, even if Abram wouldn't gotten sick, he still probably would have been hardest potty trainer.
Yeah.
Let's just full disclaimer.
Yeah.
But they did amazing and they did it and we let them help. And that was a gift. And they love that school specifically. I actually will speak into, like, during that season, the way they loved our kids was probably the most consistency they got, because they're being raised by different, like, grandparents who love them, aunts and uncles who love them, but like it's very different each time. And that school was consistent. And it was one thing they could go to each day, and it was consistent. And those people loved the Lord, and they loved my children and did above and beyond. I mean, I'm still super close to, my kids don't even go there anymore. And the people there have a place in my heart that will always be there. So
yeah, that you can't, as a parent going through that, you can't do it all.
No.
And you need help.
I need to let people help.
And you just, as best you can, make decisions with people that are trustworthy.
Yes.
And let them
Lean on them.
Yeah. And you have to. You have to. And we were not going to make it. And they stepped in. But then there's a real, whether it's cultural or whatever, of just like, we can still do this. Or no, I really appreciate it, but we'll make it work. And, and
Well, I was meant to do that. I mean, but we had to.
We had to. Yeah. And we were so fortunate to have those trustworthy,
safe places
to do that. Because we had grandmas, we had aunts and uncles, we had the school, we had just people we could say, here's our children. This is our best and most precious. And we can't do what we are supposed to do. Please help us.
So I wouldn't want to hang out here too long, but because I don't think you can know this where you are now. And so if there was something that you could have done differently, or there was something that you wish someone else knew that you wish you knew, at the beginning of this whole thing about how to navigate your 3 other kids, what would that be, if anything?
Yeah. A lot of we were never sorry about the togetherness and fighting for it, even if we paid for it somewhat.
Yep.
Um,
It was worth it. The moments we got together as a family.
yeah, because even like we'd bring kids up to the hospital and they'd be like, "Hey, I'm feeling a little done here. It's like pure chaos in my room."
And we take them out of the room.
Yeah.
In the hall.
Yeah.
It'd create pure chaos in the hall.
Or grandparents would bring them up
Yeah.
and then be like, as soon as everyone was done, be like, "All right, but trying
For the
to."
moments we could.
And that was, for the grandparents, for the kid, it's half-hour drive down the hospital. They got to check in, come up, and then Abram gets done in 10 minutes. And
never with Ezra. Ezra was always fine.
yeah.
Julie, as she got older, did better. Eli always liked to push buttons.
Yeah. But it was.
But Abram loved him.
Yeah, it was worth.
He wanted the hug.
Yep.
He did. He wanted the hug.
And then just, you don't want to be flippant with who gets those caregiving spaces for your children, but if you trust them, let them help. Let them help.
Yeah.
And your kids will benefit from it. And don't let them just go with anybody, but if they've earned that trust, let them be kids. And answer their questions are just as impossible as our questions were.
They did. I think that really surprised me. Like their questions about things they're very aware. They're a lot more aware, I think, than we even now probably give them credit for. Like I hear stuff now, especially from Ezra, like as he's sharing more as he gets older and stuff, like that he was aware of that I didn't realize he was. And to a degree, that's how he's wired. Like the way, and I think to some degree, I think I put how Abram was. Like Abram was very like, when it mattered, but he cared about people. Like the things he cared about, Abram was very aware of. If he didn't care, like Abram did not care. Like all the stuff that didn't matter. Like he cared about people and he cared about, he didn't want to be in pain. But other than that, he's kind of like, I don't care about anything else.
What would be like an example for Ezra of something that
Ezra's incredibly smart. Like he is very aware of everything, I think. He just sees stuff that I miss a lot. And then I have follow-up
always
conversations.
paying attention, very quiet,
Always.
watching,
Exactly that.
watching.
Very, very quiet. Not necessarily like engaging you in it, but like he sees it all. He hears it all. And then he has these conversations. He comes up and I'm like, I did not realize you knew that. And there's a sweetness in it though now of like getting to have these conversations with him of stuff that, I just didn't even realize. He was aware of. I was telling you, but like, his whole, he's talking about different stuff recently and talking about the idea of eventually getting baptized. And so we're talking through some questions. And one of the things we talked about was like, what questions do you have for God? And he's like, I don't understand why Abram died. Like, he's just very aware. Like his 2 questions that he had about God were, why did Abram die? And why did God allow Satan to come to earth when he banished him? Like, not that he shouldn't have, but I'm like, I'm not going to negate either of those. I was
those
like,
are
buddy,
my questions too.
That's exactly that was exactly what I told him. I was like, buddy,
yeah.
I am 36 years old.
Yeah.
And guess what? I have those exact same questions.
Yeah.
Like,
37.
am I?
Oh gosh.
I'm 37.
It's a podcast. We don't.
I'm gonna be 36 on this podcast. It's fine. I'm not. Are you about to be 38? Oh my gosh, we're so old. Okay.
Yeah.
That just threw me for a loop.
Yeah, no, he's interacting
But
with questions that are, man,
they're
some people don't
like
think about until way
he
later,
has
man.
a very
Or ever, unfortunately.
his
Yeah.
answers to all this stuff, like his level of what he gets is so much higher than what I believed he understood during the more that comes out of him. And he
Mhm.
did, because he doesn't always say a lot unless he's really upset. And so I just think kids are very aware, and to give them, like, they're their own person. I think there's a space that we need to give them to, like, not, like, this isn't just our story. This is their
Totally.
story.
Yeah.
And we're still navigating that. And we did the best we could during. And I personally at least missed that during. During, I was such survival of, like, I'm taking care of Abram and I'm gonna do the best I can for my other three, but I missed their story of grief. Whereas I think now on this side of grief, I see that more and I'm able to enter into it more, which is good. And that's okay that I wasn't there then.
Yeah, the practical thing would be like, it's a matter of energy, and you only have so much of it. And so if a certain amount of it all of a sudden has to be redistributed to one of your kids, kind of thing, then the rest of it can't go where it was, kind of can't be distributed appropriately. And so it's like, the thing that you guys did was you leaned on your family and your friends, the people you trust. That was like the fastest thing you did, was like, who do we love? Who loves our kids?
Yep.
Who can we trust? They're going to just get them around them, kind of thing, which is a practical, like, application to it, assuming people have that. It's like,
This is hard.
Get your kids around people that love them.
And that is hard. And I don't have a great answer for that.
Yeah.
And that, I mean,
yeah.
do you have anything you would say to that? Because I've seen that, and I'm so thankful we did. And yet I know there's people that don't.
Yeah, I don't judge them. I understand.
Yeah, you do the best you can.
You just do the best you can.
That's it, man.
But if at all possible.
Yeah. I think in the day you do the best you can. And what I would say after that is to have grace for yourself.
Yeah.
Because you do the best you can with what you have. And their story will be defined by things, and yet there's still grace. There's still healing. Like, God heals. Like, he can still heal those things. And I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, you leave them with a grandparent and you come home and things are not good, and they've been doing things not good. And so then you overreact to that. And I could see very quickly how, as a parent, you would pull back on all that. Say, okay, if that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah, you can't do this.
Right. And so I don't. So I mean, ultimately for us, we're just so thankful we had those places that we could open our hands to, and not everybody's got that. And we're very fortunate.
Yeah, and the way y'all look at, like, even that, the grace, and, like, just to be open of, or even fostering, like, hey, they're gonna go through counseling. That's gonna be normal. That's normal. That's normal. That should be normal.
It should be normal. It should be normal for everyone, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I still believe that.
Yeah.
I've said that a couple times. I'm making sure that's very
You're
clear.
normal. Yes.
Everyone should be a counseling.
We are normal. Yeah. But it's like, and then, like, because you have no idea, like, to put yourself in that, like you had alluded to it way early, like, okay. And you talked about it some too. It's like, okay, well, they're young kids. And, like, what are they grasping? What do they know? What are they going to remember? Either way, it's all shaping them.
Yep.
And so, like, to have an atmosphere to where there's grace for y'all, there's grace for them, and we're going to talk about all of it. And we're not going to have answers, and we're not going to. I remember my uncle not being able to kind of share that. He shares a story with me now. He's, I'm 43. He's 63 years old. He's like, my mom died when I was 9. And I vividly remembered, like, riding in the car to the funeral, and people are pumping gas and getting groceries. And, like, that's one of his biggest memories. He's like, what are y'all doing? Like, mom died. And so I hear a lot of, like, even Ezra at his age, he's like, my best friend, like, is not, like, I've had to, like, and he may have some of those memories, but to foster, like, and to what is shaping him now, to where it's like maybe there's just a few because he was so young, but it happened and it's a part of life and it's what we're doing, and y'all do have to keep doing this and give each other grace and to talk about it and to say, let's put some tools in place and let's be very, that's.
And I think the goal, like ultimately too, like I've definitely gotten more lax in the side of discipline, specifically with what they want to share with me. Like if you want to share something with me, you get significantly less discipline, just because I'm like, I want to be safe.
Yeah.
Because I think I want, like, I desperately want that for
Sure.
our kids. Like,
Sure.
not that I won't correct things that I hear, like in their train of thought, but like, I really want to be a safe place for them to be like, hey, I'm struggling and I'm going to come to you.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, I think both of us do that, like to a degree now.
You do.
Where it's just like, we're not going to lie to you. We're not going to be fake. Like, this world is very broken. Like our kids know that to a degree that I think most kids their age do not.
Totally.
We talk about that often in our home. Like this world is broken, and yet you can come to us and like you can talk about us at anything. Like you can ask me any question you want, and you will not get in trouble. But like I want my kids to come to feel safe, to because they've gone through it.
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
So.
It's a really sweet and difficult but sweet thing.
So my I don't know, I have this in my head. My grandfather had a brother named Tommy, and they were the same age as Ezra and Abram, or right around the same pocket of ages. And Tommy died, and Tommy died because they were hanging out in the bathroom, to like just home alone kind of thing. Like great grandpa was gone. And back in those days, they'd made toilet seats different. There was some sort of material on the toilet seat that was flammable, and you couldn't breathe it. And so they're sitting there like kids lighting matches, throwing the matches into the toilet. Right. Well, one of the matches, or several of them, landed on the toilet seat, which created a fume that Tommy breathed in, and it killed him. Right. And he was 4 or 5 years old. My grandfather came around the corner and checked on him, and he was dead. Right. And so my great grandfather comes home and sees my grandfather there holding his dead brother. He'd been there for the duration of the evening, right? And he took it out on him, right? Like he blamed him for his death. He took it out on him. It became a major identifying marker of my grandfather's life, was that he had to carry that kind of thing. And the reason I say that story is like, when we're talking about parenting, I guess, and parenting kids that are going through some version of that kind of thing. My grandfather's he is who he is, but he's a very loving person. He accomplished a great deal in his life. He had a family. He had grandkids. He's kind, right? Like he's soft, even though that the greatest thing that ever happened to him got blamed, and he got blamed for it, and had to carry that weight forever. Like it was your fault this happened, kind of thing. And to think about the way you guys are doing that, and the totally opposite way kind of thing, with something of that magnitude, it's like, this is how it ought to be done. The spirit of it, let's just say, is how it ought to be done. And I think in my head, like, I'm like, again, it's just a story for a story kind of thing. There's a lot of other stories, but I'm like, if my grandfather can end up like that 85 years old at the end of his life, then golly, what are these kids going to end up like?
Yeah.
With you two as their parents.
Yeah. Yeah, keep going. It's cool. Yeah, it's cool.
I mean, they'll definitely be in counseling to some degree for us at some point.
It's fine.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, if they've experienced it already, that's a good thing.
That's very encouraging from my heart.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Cool. Yep.
Yeah. And in all humility, we just trying to do the best we can, and we don't know
what the heck we're doing.
No.
But this is just our story of it.
Yeah.
It's a very loving environment that's not doing that has uncles and aunts and grandparents and schools.
They do. Even their public
really
school
cool.
they're in now, our kids are. That's one of the things I will say. Like, I've heard people question where God was in Abram's story because he didn't heal him. And that to me is never a question. Like I question a lot of things the Lord did. Like I've had my wrestles with the Lord. Like that is not what I'm trying to say at all. But I've never questioned that God was there because I see this story. I see the way he met my son in ways that was unfathomable to me of how he held him. And then I see stuff of how he orchestrated around our other kids, around us. I mean, I'm like, he was not there.
Yeah.
So like, that is not even on my, like people are like, where's God? Like he's there. He, a lot of the time has not done what I wanted. And I have absolutely like, I don't want this to sound like I haven't wrestled because there's been a lot of that. And we haven't really touched on that, I guess, yet, but, he's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's holding a lot of things.
And the there-ness in that statement is like in ways that are too specific to you to even explain.
Yes.
Like it's,
I can't not see it.
It's too odd. Yeah. Little things that happen, it's like they didn't have to happen, but they did. And
I mean, our kids were surrounded. Our other three, Abram was surrounded. I mean, we were surrounded. It was so evident in our story.
It's cool.
So.